Okay. Hi, everybody. Um, Welcome to the first in the sort of startup webinar series that we're doing. If you guys want to keep your cameras off, that is great, and keep your microphones muted. If you have any questions as I go, feel free to turn your mic on and interrupt me, or just throw it into the chat. Um, Let me see here. I'm just gonna sort of vamp for another minute to let everybody come in. Um, So on the call, we also have Aaron, who runs our marketing at SBDC. A couple of other advisors are here too. But yeah, so this is part one of, I think we're doing a four-part series that we're going to try to do every year to cover sort of the basics of starting up a business. And the first one is what we call the startup checklist, where we just kind of go through all the sort of technical assistance that people need when starting up a business, right? Part two, we'll go into planning, um, you know, diving deeper into a business plan, into financial projections. I forget what we have planned for part three and four, but there's a part three and four. And so this first part is more of like a broad overview. We call this the checklist. So I'm gonna kind of go through the checklist a little fast. Just get my goal here is to give you guys like a broad overview so that you guys can start before you have to delve too deep into the details, right? So you can understand the big picture of things. And hopefully to provide I'll go into detail where there's some common pain points that we experience here at the SBDC or that we hear from you guys about at the SBDC. Okay. So let's get started. So a little bit of housekeeping. This session's being recorded. We record it for training purposes, for archiving, and we also upload these into our YouTube channel. The slides of this will also be emailed to you guys after the presentation. Like I said, please keep yourself on mute. And please, my main priority here is to answer your questions. So if you have questions as they come up, throw them into the chat, and I'll do my best to sort of keep an eye on that. Um, let's see. All right, so first, let's go into Maine SBDC. Maine SBDC is a sort of it's an interesting program. I call it like a mix of a government program and a nonprofit. So we are funded at the federal level, the state level, and the local level. We provide no cost, confidential business advising, often one-on-one. We can meet in person, remote, over the phone, or any way our clients need. So our goal is to serve any tax-paying person starting a business in Maine. We can help you with anything related to that, right? So on this list of things, transitions, startups, um, assistance getting financing. We can help you with financial analysis, your projections, your profit and loss statements. We can help you with strategy, marketing, sales, literally anything related to your business, we can help you with. The things that we cannot do, which is very important, we cannot provide any legal or accounting advice. We can sort of give you broad context, pros and cons of whatever decision you're facing, but at the end of it, we will always refer to a professional. All the materials that we give you are for informational purposes only. Again, should not be relied on for tax, legal, or accounting advice. All right. Other things to know about the SBDC. There are 13 full-time advisors that cover the whole state. Combined, I just sort of recently ran a sort of AI report on this. Between all 13 advisors, there is over 200 years of combined experience, right? 40 years directly with business advising, and then 170 years of their own individual experience running businesses, working in education, things like that. So there's a lot of resources that we can provide for you. And even though you're usually assigned one advisor, we all work together as a team. And so if someone is lacking experience or information in one field, we have 13 other people that we can rely on to sort of help you, right? More about me. I cover Lewiston, York County. Oh, my name is Vien, by the way. Um, I cover Lewiston, York County. I also help with the Portland office when needed because they're super busy. I come from a hospitality, food and beverage background. I've opened three businesses in Maine. Um, I've helped a small business grow from three locations to regionally to 11 locations nationally. So I've seen the gamut of small business, starting my own, helping others. And every business that I have started has been lucky enough to receive national accolades for all the food and beverage places I've started. Okay. Um, my email and phone number are there on the screen. I'll have that again for you at the end of this. All right, enough about me. So the checklist. Again, this is part one of four in a series designed to help you get your business started. Um, let's see. So again, this checklist webinar is something that we do quite often. So I think we try to run 2 or 3 a year, and they're all archived onto the YouTube, and it covers those things there on the screen, all the basics to get you started. Um, but because we've done this so much, I thought maybe I could use this time more to give you guys space to ask me questions. Um, so I'm gonna dedicate a little more time to Q&A in this webinar than we normally would, just to see how it goes. I will, of course, go into detail when there are common issues that people face, and there will be a poll a little bit later. Okay. So yeah, oh, here's a poll. Um, So Aaron's gonna throw a poll up in the Zoom chat, I think, and I just want to know where everyone is in their process so I can get a sense of like what you guys want to hear from me. Okay? So let's take a moment to answer that. Thanks, Aaron.
No problem.
And if you answer other in the poll, please put it if you're comfortable with it, please put it in the chat where you're at. I'll give it 30 seconds. How many people do we have? We have 18 people. That's awesome. Financing. Great. Okay.
A
I'm
couple
gonna
more rolling
end.
in, but I think we're,
Yeah. Okay, I'm going
I
to end
think
the
I'll
poll
end it
now.
here.
Everyone can see the results. Okay, I'm in the poll now. Share the results. Can everybody see those results? So most people answered other, and some people said I have an idea, but don't know where to start. So first, addressing that first one, again, Maine SBDC is a great place to start there. We often help clients basically conduct a feasibility report, meaning is your idea a viable business, right? And again, that might not involve all this technical stuff that we're going through here in this webinar, but on the next one, in the planning one, the tools you use for business planning, writing a business plan, creating financial projections, market analysis, those are the same tools you would need to create a feasibility report. All that means is your business a good idea? Is it a sustainable business? Um, in the other section, let me just read off a couple of seeking financing. You're in the R&D process again, so I think that would be considered in the sort of development phase, right? Want to start a Shopify online store. We definitely have clients that their business is purely an online retail situation. I know where I'm headed, but want legal and tax recommendations. Um, yeah, we have resources for that. We have a large list of what we call the bail team, right? Gosh, what does it stand for? What is it? Banker, attorney. I don't remember. It's your accountant, your lawyer, your insurance, all the things you need to start a business, right? So we definitely have a list of referrals for that for you, and can just again talk you through, the uh,
Looks like we lost the presentation. Let's see. Ian, are you here?
Aaron, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It looks like we lost the video.
Yeah, my Zoom just reset.
Okay, that's no problem.
Yeah.
We'll
Let me
get it
get
back.
back. PowerPoint, share. Okay. Is that back?
I'll come back in a second here. I'll let you know when I see it. All right, looks like we're back.
Okay, cool. And then is the layout as the layout's back? Looks good. Thanks, guys. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it happens.
Weird. What was I saying? Okay. Are we everybody good?
Yeah, you were
Um,
in the chat, right, with the different.
yeah. So yeah, so tax and legal recommendations, we can help with that. Let's see here. Establish my business but have not created revenue. Okay, great. Um, so it sounds like a lot of people are in the development phase. So again, yeah, this webinar covers a lot of the technical assistance that you need to start a business, right? Um, so this checklist is again designed to help you have a clearer path towards opening your business, right? On the left, you'll see the image. That's, I've started business myself. There's a lot to do. It's very overwhelming. You don't know where to start, right? And so it could feel like this on the left, right? So my goal is to sort of, it's still going to be a twisting path. There is, you're juggling a lot of things, and there's going to be some twists and turns, but the goal is that we're making incremental progress towards you opening your business. The left was me. Well, yeah. Sometimes even when you get to a clearer path, sometimes things can sort of get tangled up again, right? Again, that's what SBDC is here for, to help you navigate the sort of winding road of being an entrepreneur. Okay. So yeah, so this list is not a linear to-do list, right? We have to present it that way, but oftentimes you're juggling a lot of this stuff all at once, right? And how to prioritize each one is really dependent on the context of what's going on with you, your business, your situation in the moment. Okay, which I can't sort of go through that right now in a webinar situation like this. And again, that is where having your own advisor um, who can talk to you about your situation is super, super helpful. All right, moving on. So we'll start with market research. Oftentimes, we start with this because this is sort of like covering the development phase, right? Is my business idea good? Will it make money, right? Um, so that covers the feasibility and planning phase. So when you're doing market research, there's two kinds. They call it primary and secondary. Primary research is, let me just double check my primary research is what you conduct on your own, right? That is getting out in your community, putting boots on the ground, talking to people, collecting direct data yourself. If you are thinking about starting a coffee shop, that could mean, camping in your local coffee shop to see how much business they do, right? And literally counting the people that come through the door. It could also be, again, keeping with the coffee shop analogy, talking to people who are going there and asking them what else they would like to see in their community um, from a coffee shop, right? So it's data research that you conduct yourself. It's super valuable. Obviously, it's very time consuming. The other kind of market research is secondary. That just means collecting data and reports from trusted sources. You can collect a lot of industry data from the internet, from your library. You can look at demographics data from your city's website. And then you can also, again, use your SBDC advisor. As an advisor, we have access to databases that you have to pay for that we can offer you for free, right? So we can pull a report for specific industries in specific geographic areas. It's not always, some of that information isn't always available if you have a very specific niche idea. But in general, we can do a lot of research, provide a lot of that research for you. Okay. Let's see, what else do I have here for you guys? All right, so that's market research. Yeah, talk to customers. Okay. Uh, the next thing you'll want to do is start writing a business plan, right? A business plan is basically your ideas written down, right? Going back to that sort of picture I shared with you guys of like that road, that winding, knotted road. Sometimes that's kind of what our ideas look like when we're trying to start a business. We have one good idea, and then we start piling on, what we think are 100 other good ideas. But the business plan really is a way for us to commit to a few of them and really push ourselves to write down what the idea is, how it's going to work, what numbers, what kind of numbers it's going to do. It's in a way it's a commitment to yourself, but it's also like it's a living document, right? It is going to be the thing that you use to quickly communicate your ideas, not just to yourself, to your staff, to investors, to lenders, to anyone that is going to be helpful to you in your business, right? But even if you're not looking for financing, it is really, really useful just as a document for yourself, right? To get your ideas down on paper. Um, so that is again, like that's one of the number one thing that people don't have when they come to us is some kind of business plan. Um, and again, we can help you with that, right? We can be an editor for you on that. You can bounce your ideas off of us, and we can sort of, with our questioning, um, push and prod you towards your a really, really refined version of your business idea. Let's see, let's keep going here. Right, objective and audience. So again, that's the business plan can be directed at a financial institution or for yourself. If it's for yourself, oftentimes we just recommend a one-page business plan. Okay. Okay. Let's. Yeah. So you connected some research. You created a business plan. Let's say you started some financial projections, and now it's time to sort of start thinking about what kind of legal entity that you are going to be. So there's many ways you can do this, right? Um, you can you could be a sole. The most common ways that we see at SBDC, since we're working with small businesses, are a sole proprietorship or an LLC. Um, but you can also become a corporation within LLC. You can become an S corp, and it can be really confusing. And this confusion is often creates a very common pain point that we see. It's that because it feels very um, when you come to do this, because the stakes feel really high and because it's so confusing, because you're dealing with sort of like bureaucracy, right? Oftentimes it can feel like the best thing to do is to pay someone else to do this. And there are a lot of um, businesses out there that will offer to do this for you for a fee. Some of them are scams, so please be careful of that. Some of them are legitimate. Even the legitimate ones, when they make a mistake, which they also, they make mistakes too, it can be really hard to rectify those mistakes because you're not dealing with the city or the state yourself. You're going through a third party. Um, and so we often get clients that have like paid someone to do this, and it's actually, once you have a little bit of guidance from the SBDC or other economic advisors, um, explain the difference between S and C corp. Yes. Um, I will get to that one second. What was I saying? The uh, it's a it's free to do it yourself. It's very easy, and it's an easy way to save money, and it's something that you should know how to do if you're going to be running your own business, right? And so, um, when you are deciding what kind of legal entity you want to be, basically a question. You're answering a question related to two areas: taxation and liability. Let's just think about sole proprietorship and LLCs for now. S corps fall under LLC designation. Corporations, I'm honestly less familiar with because it's not something that I've dealt with. But we do have a separate webinar that just covers corporations. Okay, that is run by my boss, Pete Danger Harriman. Um, but going back to the question of liability and taxation. So a sole proprietorship and an LLC, they're treated the same as far as taxation is concerned, right? In the eyes of the state and the federal government, those things are the same when it comes to taxes. So really, when if you're considering a sole proprietorship or an LLC, it's really a question of liability. And all that means is do you want the whatever risk your business is taking on, do you want that risk to follow you and your social security number, or do you want it to follow what's called an EIN or an employer identification number, which is basically a social security number for a business. And so if you are, so that kind of depends on what kind of business you're starting, right? If you are starting a business that has inherent risks to it, I would say restaurants, if you're serving food, if people are ingesting the thing that you're producing, um, you should be an LLC. If you are just selling artwork or not just, but if you're selling artwork or things that you make that don't require a lot of risk to take on to produce or to sell, it's probably fine to be a sole proprietorship. Again, the context of what you're trying to do really matters in the situation, your business, your finances, how much risk you can take on in your own life. And that is a question that can be sussed out in advising, and you have to discuss it with your accountant. Okay. So again, as far as liability and taxation concerned, that's what you're thinking about when you're thinking about whether or not to be a sole proprietorship or an LLC. Within an LLC, the S corp is a designation that you can file for if you want to be one of the biggest determining factors is how you want to pay yourself as an owner. In an LLC, you as an owner, you can just take an owner's draw, and at the end of the year, pay income taxes on that. Throughout you will pay estimated taxes on that. If you want to just be a W-2 employee, you become an S corp. And really, it's kind of determined by how much profit you think you'll consistently have at the end of the year. If you have more profit, you'll likely want to be an S corp. If you're not going to have much, you probably don't need to be an S corp. Again, but that one is an accounting. That's something you want to discuss with your accountant. It is possible to, and this decision here is not a permanent decision. Um, if you decide to become one thing, you can transform your business into something else. Obviously, that requires time, paperwork, money. Okay. Let's see here. I hope I answered some of that. But yes, there is a webinar that covers corporations. It goes really deep into it. My pleasure. Um, but big thing, avoid scams. You can do this yourself. You can file it yourself between you and your accountant and your advisor. You do not need to pay a third-party company to do this for you. Okay. All right. Let's see. Next slide. Part of this, part of choosing your legal entity is choosing a name. Um, there's a lot of things to consider when picking a name. You obviously want to pick a name that stands out, that describes what you do. If you are a sole proprietorship, the name of your business that will be on a lot of your administrative stuff is just your name. And so oftentimes you don't want to put that out there. So you can then file what's called a DBA that you'll file with the state. It just means that you're doing business as under another name, right? And so this also works for LLCs. Um, your LLC could be one name, and then you could be your DBA, and you could be doing business as a different name. Okay. The LLC name, let me see. The LLC name is like a searchable thing that goes into a database, but it doesn't need to be the public facing name of the company, right? It could be your DBA. Let's see here. Protection of trademarks. You can also file for a trademark for your name so that no one else can have it. You have to do this with the federal government, and or sometimes states also have this process. I actually don't know what Maine's process is like, but this is a very time-consuming, expensive process, right? So not everybody does it. But if you have enough success and your name starts to have a lot of inherent value in it, it could be worth it to trademark that name. All right. But yeah, you want to make sure that your business name, um, your business name is the first thing that your potential client will know about you, right? And so what you want to ask yourself is, what what is that? What is the thing you want to communicate right away? What's the first thing you want to communicate? Does that mean I can change the name I am doing business as after? Yes, yes. So if you filed a, even if you've created an LLC already, and let's say your LLC is Jimmy's Hot Dogs LLC, Jimmy's Hot Dogs LLC can then um, create a DBA to be doing business as, if they want to change to Jimmy's Dogs or whatever, right? Yes, you can change your name. Um, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so yeah, your business name is really important in terms of like what is the thing that you want to communicate. Um, let's see here. And sometimes that can, people now like to have like a confusing name because now that's the thing that sort of generates attention, right? Again, it depends on the market research you've done, what your business is, who your target clientele is going to be. Okay, moving on. Another consideration to make if you're opening a brick and mortar business, right, is where the business is going to be located and the space that it's going to operate out of. Location can be very, very, very important, but it's not the end all be all. It again depends on the kind of business you are, the area that you operate in. If you are in search of a space, it is helpful to have a broker. They will take a percentage of the they make some money off that, so they have their own incentives. If you have a good relationship with a broker, that's always useful. Let me go back here. I have a question about DBAs. Can you have one LLC with multiple DBAs? I believe you can, but I would like to double check that for you. But I believe you can. Um, you know what? Let me look that up. Beth, I will email you the research answer after this. Okay, let me just write that down. Okay. Going back to location. Um, having a broker is helpful. Having a good relationship with a broker is also very helpful so that they know what it is that you're looking for. Ideally, the broker is tied to the community that you're opening in, right? So they have some of the community's interest in mind, not just their own interest. But you can also just walk around, and keep an eye out for signs that are for spaces that are for lease. But if you do that, you're only gonna see what's already out there. You're not gonna get ahead, right? So a broker will be connected to real estate in a way where they can know what spaces are coming up, right? Um, and so yeah, having a good relationship with a broker is really useful. Let's see here. Other things to consider about the space is, again, depending on the business that you are opening, um, what are you in proximity to, right? If you're next to a university or a hospital or a lot of office spaces, what does that mean for your clientele? What are they going to want? Um, what kind of parking do you have available to you? So the space is very important and it should be a consideration in your business plan. And oftentimes you're writing your business plan without knowing what your location is, right? And that's okay. Just leave space for that. Because if you have enough of an idea of what your business plan is, you'll kind of know what the limitations are of what you can and can't do, and that'll then dictate what kind of space is going to work for your idea, right? Um, Other things to consider, zoning is really important, right? Is that space zoned for the work that you're going to be doing? If you're opening a bar, for instance, like are you allowed to like how late can you stay open within that area? We have some bars here in Portland, right, that can only stay open till 11, whereas other bars stay open till 1. Um, right, so you can, again, a broker will know that stuff for you. If you don't have a broker, you just check with the city. Okay. One of the biggest things though is that sort of we get a lot of business owners encountering, and I've encountered this myself in trying to open a restaurant, is you come across a space and it feels like the perfect space, but the timing isn't right. Like you have your finances aren't lined up yet, or your business plan isn't in a good place yet, or whatever, right? And you want to justify to yourself, I need to jump on this space. And that's a challenging situation to be in, right? I will caution that signing a space too early can create a ton of problems, right? Like, especially if you don't get a lot of time before you can get in that space. So you want to make sure that you have enough of an idea of what you are. Oh gosh, I'm going slow. That you have enough of an idea of your plan and your finances before you sign a space. And again, if you want to consider, is this the right time for a space? That's what your advisor can help you with. Okay. The space you're looking at needs construction before you can move in. Yeah. So like, especially like if you're opening a space that needs a lot of renovations, like you have to take time to assess what that project is going to look like, to budget for it, and then to put it into your plan, right? And so, landlords are incentivized to get you in as soon as possible. And so you want to make sure that you know your numbers, know your timeline, know what the project is in front of you before you sign a lease. And a lot of the stuff can be negotiated ahead of time. Um, okay, moving on. Insurance. You're going to need insurance to run a business. Everyone needs general business liability insurance, but other forms of insurance you'll need, workers' compensation if you have employees, if you have W-2 employees, right? You might have health insurance that you need for that staff. Insurance for any sort of vehicles or heavy equipment that are really important to your operation. Key man insurance is insurance for like a very vital person to the operation. Professional liability insurance if you are um, what's classified as a professional service, mental health, healthcare, things like that. Okay. Um, you're going the in Maine, in my experience, the sort of main decision point to make is, are you going to go with a local insurance broker or a national one? And then, there's trade-offs with each one. The local one, you get to talk to a person and they'll talk you through things. You have more access to a specific person and they can talk you through different policies and they can shop around for you, and you can have just more of a direct relationship with them. A national one sometimes will be faster, they'll respond, their systems are more automated, they'll be faster for you, but you're just going to get less personal attention. Again, it depends on what you need. But insurance companies will often have a lot of policies for you and point you in the direction of any specific insurance that you'll need. Usually the process starts with them asking you a lot of questions about your business, and then they'll offer you a policy on that. Okay, so it's really important to have that before you start a lot of your operations because you want to make sure that you and your company are covered for a lot of risk, right? Um, Next, depending on the business that you need, you always need a business license of some kind. Um, but there is not just one kind of business license. Each industry has their own specific requirements. There are some that require no licenses. I don't know what those are off the top of my head. Um, but so yeah, depending on what kind of business you are, you'll need a specific license. The place to go for that is Maine Business Answers, or again, SBDC can look that up for you. Um, if you go to Maine, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to show you this. So this is Maine Business Answers. You could call a number and talk to somebody in at the state, right? Or you can like look up what kind of business you're starting and they'll give you all the requirements. I find it's most helpful to talk to somebody. That way you know for sure that you're being pointed in the right direction. And if you get handed off to somebody, you can say, oh, Bob told me to go this route, and then you can sort of more easily um, correct mistakes if you're led astray. Okay. Um, Timing is something important to consider when thinking about your licenses because some licenses take a lot of time, right? They need to, depending what you do, they need to do an inspection, check in on what you're doing. And so those things could take time. So again, depending on the industry, you might want to consider investigating the licensing and permitting of your business on the earlier side. Okay. All right. Business answers. All right. Question break. Any questions so far that you guys want to throw my way? I'll give this like a minute. If I don't hear anything, we'll just keep going. If I answered all the questions in the chat. How can we find the bail list? You mean the like the list of lawyers and accountants? Um, I we ha you know so we I Liz, I have your. You can send me an email directly. Um, and I could send that to you. I'll put my email back up again. But I think we have, you've already given us your email, so I can probably send that to you. So I'll make a note of that. Liz. Resources. This, you're welcome. Yeah, this list is it's helpful to start early on this because sometimes a lot of those services are at capacity. So you're gonna have to call around and see who's still taking clients. Any other questions before we move on? You're opening up. Okay, Debbie, I see you. Resources to you as well. Let's see here. Opening a bakery. Obviously can't have health inspections since we're under renovations. How long will it take to get one once we have our renovations equipment in? It depends on how busy they are. Usually it's not that long, and you can contact the health inspector ahead of time and let them know where you're at, and he can give you a sense of there's two for the state, so I know it's a he. It's Eric and I want to say Tom. They're great. They're very helpful. Um, and if you can, um, Greg, if you have trouble reaching them, email me and I can help you connect with them because I've worked with them a lot since I've opened several restaurants in town. They can give you a sense of how long it's going to take, and they can give you like you can just tell them where you're at, and they can even do a walkthrough ahead of time and just tell you what to look out for. Okay, you're welcome. Liz, I know I have local permits needed. Do we also need state licenses? Craft business for context. For a craft business, depends on what craft, but I don't think you will need a state license. Um, I know I have local. So yeah, if you talk to whatever city or municipality you're in about the permit you need, ask them if you need a state license. Okay. But again, Maine Business Answers, right? That website that I threw up on the thing is gonna be will help you. This will answer the questions on the state level for you. Okay. Maine Business Answers. Revisit market. Dan McDonald. What are some important indicators to look for when conducting research? So I'm gonna assume you're talking about primary research, Dan. Great. Um, let's see. For me, let's try to make it broad so it applies to many industries. It's really thinking about first you start off thinking about what problem are you solving or what is your value proposition, right? It's kind of two things. So what's the problem you're solving? What's your value proposition? And then thus who's your clientele? That's really what you're trying to figure out, right? And so once you can identify so you're going to go through a process of trying to identify who that is, right? And you start kind of broadly, right? You start where you can, meaning, let's go back to the coffee shop analogy, right? Let's say, I guess I'm doing that because I've opened a few coffee shops. Um, Coffee shops are tied to their community, right? Oftentimes, it's like the people going to the coffee shop, they go to the closest one to them, right? So just look at the market that you're going to be opening in. What is there? What's not there? And does that meet the thing that you want to provide, right? And so in answering that question, you really want to think about who your customer is going to be, who your core customer is going to be, and what's important to them, what's their values, what's their behaviors, right? Um, so those are the things to look like patterns of behavior. What is a priority to your customers? Um, to me, those are like the main indicators, right? What is not being provided right now, and how does that meet with my business idea, right? And so finding those sort of vulnerabilities or those opportunities really, right? What is the biggest opportunity, right? And hopefully that aligns with your strength and your passion and the business idea that you have, and you can sort of meet that opportunity really well. And so really, again, start what you can is the first thing, right? And as you research and find more information, more things often reveal themselves to you. Okay, but it's really about thinking, really putting yourselves in the shoes of the customer and empathizing really with their experience and finding out what's important to them. I hope that answers the question, Dan. Softball question. Well, that was a challenging question. Any more questions before I move on? All right, moving on. So this is probably what the one of the biggest sections. I say this for after the break. One of the biggest things that you're probably encountering is financing, right? It's how much money do I need to start? Where do I get this money? So let's start with the how much. Um, when you're trying to determine how much money you need, you're going to create what's called sources and uses. Basically, that just means where am I getting the money from? A list of where am I getting the money from, and then a list of where is that money going to go, right? So that's your uses, right? So start with the uses and figure out, you know, again, let's just keep using the coffee shop analogy. What does average rent look like? What's the minimum square footage you need? Figure out your rent, start putting some numbers in for your initial utilities, for any renovations you need, equipment. A lot of this stuff can be researched online, especially like equipment. You can just start like, going shopping for that equipment now and putting that list together. And so getting a really detailed sense of how much this is going to cost is the starting point. And then sourcing is like where do we can get that money, right? So there are many places to go to finance a business, and it all requires a lot of work. Um, you can self-fund, right? So from your own personal savings, you can borrow money from friends and family, um, debt financing. Again, so starting with going back to the self-funding, not everybody has a lot of that money. Not everybody has friends and family that can put money in. You will need to put, if you're going to do any of these, you will need to put some of your own money in. No one starts a business purely on debt and investment, right? Everybody has to put something in. And it can't just be sweat equity. There has to be some capital on the line from you. Um, each of these categories will look for that as well. Debt financing, basically going to a bank, some other financial institution, credit cards, lines of credit, things like that, right? All those things are going to want to see, especially if you're a new business, a really good business plan, a really strong cash flow projection, really. And by strong, I mean, not like 80% insane amount of profit right out the gate. It means conservative, pessimistic, but still cash flowing properly, right? So that you understand, like if you are you're doing a minimum amount of business, you can still make enough money to pay yourself and pay back the debt that you took on to open that business. Equity financing is less common for small businesses, especially in Maine, but they could be individuals that invest money, angel investors, firms, venture capitalists that are looking to invest money. These investors, again, it's not free money. They want something in return, right? They want a stake of your company. They want control or some ownership in your company. And they want to see, you know, uh, profits, and they want to see their investment have a return in a finite, usually short amount of time, right? There are investors out there that have patience and stuff like that, but again, those are unicorns, right? We you should not rely on a unicorn to finance your business. And then alternative methods, these are kind of um, you know, these are good to consider. Crowdfunding is becoming more and more popular. There are more and more platforms that offer crowdfunding opportunities, and many different ways of financing those things. GoFundMe just does direct stuff, right? Each of these platforms takes a fee from the money you've raised. There's other things like New Market, which it's basically that they're selling credits to your service. They focus more on restaurants, but there's tons of these platforms. They all take a fee from what you've raised. And in general, these are huge marketing campaigns that you have to do yourself, right? The success of crowdfunding really depends on your ability to really push your brand, your identity, your story, and marketing. And it's like a daily push for marketing over a finite period of time usually. And so not everybody has the time and resources to do that. Another way is grants and competitions. So grants, there's there's less and less grants, federal and state grants these days. They are still out there, but the timeline on those, the financing those varies and changes. And again, that's where your SBDC advisor can be very useful for you. Um, there's also pitch competitions and just like nationwide grant competitions. Companies like, I think Amazon has one, American Express has one. They have nationwide grant competitions for like a $10,000 grant for small businesses. Um, those are good because those are easy-ish online applications, but they're challenging because you're competing with the whole country, right? Um, and there's pitch competition. So, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the bank off the top of my head. Um, it used to be Norway Savings Bank, but they changed their name. They have like an annual pitch competition for small businesses specifically focused in Maine, where you can get a grant. And so those are great too. But again, those processes are more involved, and it's a once a year round of funding. Okay, so many ways to do it. It's probably obviously, it's one of the biggest challenges of starting a business is getting the money for that. And again, that's where SBDC can help. We help with loan applications, grant applications, financial projections, helping you with your business plan, things like that. We see a lot of those, right? One of the biggest challenges, moving on, one of the biggest challenges, um, how am I doing on time? I feel like I'm going way over. One of the biggest challenges with financing the start of your business is called undercapitalization. This is definitely something you want to avoid doing. It can create a lot of problems. So what is it? So, let's say you created your budget, your startup budget, your sources and uses, and you're looking for $200,000 to start your business. You start the process of trying to finance this, and you can only, you're struggling and it gets challenging, and you get 150, right? So now you're asking yourself, can I do it for 150 when I plan to do it for 200? And here you risk undercapitalization, meaning you just get less money than you need to start the business properly, to give it the chance it needs to be successful. And I understand the incentive to do this, right? Because again, as an entrepreneur, you are all entrepreneurs. You want to make it work, right? You want to say to yourself, I can make this work. I have enough. I can figure it out. I can scale down. I can make this work. And that sometimes is true, but it's very important to keep in mind the problems that can create so that you can sort of anticipate and plan for those problems, right? One of the biggest ones is like, um, part of your financing will probably be your runway capital, right? How much money you like the first 3 to 6 months of operating expenses to run your business, right? And so that's usually one of the first things that goes when you are considering undercapitalizing your business is you say, okay, I plan for 6 months of runway. Let's just plan for three and we'll figure it out after 3 months. Um, that is I've done that. And you start your business off on the wrong foot and you start, falling into, scrambling for more financing 3 months in while you're running a business, and it can be very challenging and just create a rippling effect of a lot of problems. And so if that is a decision you're facing, you're going to want to have a clear plan for how you're going to get yourself out of that, right? But ideally, it's best to sort of get the money you need at the start as much as possible, and challenge yourself with financing it instead of like having to run the business the first 3 months and also financing it later, right? Um, gosh, I had a good anecdote for this. But now I'm losing it. So yeah, big, big, big pain point that we see often is undercapitalizing. Okay. So part of figuring out how to finance your business, how it's going to run, is creating cash flow projections. That's just financials, right? But cash flow meaning is literally like how much money is gonna be in your bank account week to week, month to month, and you want to make sure that number never goes into the negative. Um, So the cash flow projection will give you a sense of how feasible your business is going to be. It's going to show lenders that this is a project that can be financed, right? It's going to affect many decisions throughout the life of your business, not just the beginning, right? So having a healthy, lively relationship to your cash flow projections is really important when you're running a business. And starting it before the business is open and before the stresses of running the business start is a great place, a great time to do that. Okay. This is going to inform your goals. It's going to inform how much you pay yourself, when you can hire. So cash flow projections are super helpful. And they can be daunting, right? Because it's spreadsheets, it's a lot of numbers, it's math. Um, but it's very simple. Like if you break it down, it's really just how much money is coming in, how much money is coming out, right? And if we get that all into a spreadsheet, we can teach you how to manipulate those numbers to play out different scenarios and thus, give you a clearer idea of how your business is gonna be doing financially. And so this is one of my favorite things to do, for others, for myself. It really is like, to me, it's like if you've seen the movie The Matrix where you like start seeing the code, that's what it is. Like you're really seeing like how things are working. Um, and so you're seeing the reality of the business, right? The truth of how things are going. How do I do a cash flow when my future landlord isn't getting me all the numbers that I need? That's going to be challenging. I mean, you could plot you have so um when you do a cash flow, you're going to be missing some information, right? Especially when you haven't opened yet. You're just projecting. So first is filling out the template, filling in all the fields as much as you can. One of them is going to be your rent or your utilities, right? You're going to guess on those numbers. And having the exact number is super helpful, but if you can't have the exact number, at least you can put in like what is the most rent I can pay and make this all work, and what is the number that I would like to pay, right? So you can get a range so that when your landlord gives you a number, you can just say, hey, this is way off. I can't make this work, right? Um, Obviously, you want to push them to give you the numbers you need and tell them like, hey, I can't figure out how things are going to run unless you give me these numbers. Um, but until that happens, and sometimes they will, if they're not willing to give you those numbers, you might want to ask, like, is this a relationship I want to have for my business with this person? Um, but you can sort of sketch out everything around those numbers, and then the that that missing piece of information can be filled in later, right? We can put a placeholder number there for to start. Okay, I hope I answered that question. But yeah, cash flow projections incredibly important to your business. I understand that it feels like a low priority when you're starting, because it's data entry, um, but it is incredibly useful. Okay, moving on. Yeah, so I'll just quick show you a template of what a cash flow one version of a template for cash flow projections looks like. Right at the top here, you're just putting money coming in. I believe this loans line up here is financing that you're receiving, right? This is all incoming. This is stuff going out, right? Here are some examples of of what those quantities, what those categories are. You can add and subtract those depending on what your business is. Cash flow is kicking my butt. Okay, that's where we can help you for sure, Greg. Please, if you haven't signed up already, we can literally just sit for an hour and working on your cash flow projections together. Okay. Um, So you pre-start. This is like what you have before you start, and then you just start entering your monthly numbers, right? And then here you enter your any debt obligations you have. Owner's withdrawal is what you pay yourself, and so this will give you, cash paid out and your cash position at the end of each month, right? And so ideally, this never drops into the negative. And that's what a bank's going to want to see. Well, what they really want to see is that the cash flow allows for debt repayment at a certain ratio. Okay. And that ratio is dependent on industry, dependent on the current economic climate. All right. We definitely have templates for this. We have many templates. Each advisor has, versions that they like to work with, and we tailor it to your industry. So again, these are the kind of resources you can get for free at the SBDC. All right. But how much should I grow over 3 to 6 months to show a trend in the right direction? Again, depends on your industry, but you want to factor in seasonality in this as well, right? In Maine, pretty much every business is going to be affected by seasonality. And so having someone that has experience with that and has seen a lot of different numbers to know like what is a reasonable ratio of growth is helpful. Um, but yeah, we can help that question. Again, I would need to sit down with you and see what kind of industry you're in, where you're at, the context, again, all the circumstances of your business to give you a better recommendation on what the growth trend should look like. Okay. But we can definitely help you with that. All right. Taxes. Why did I put this part at the end? Taxes are really important. When you become a business, you are signing up to collect and remit taxes for the state and the federal government, right? And so let's see here. So you are going to have to do, collect all this, right? These three ones here, sales tax as well, depending on the kind of the industry. You're going to want to talk to your accountant to make sure that you basically you want to just have a good, you want to be organized and have good uh, record keeping practices, right? You don't have to do this yourself. This is where your accountant comes in, right? The big thing for a business owner is that you're tracking things, you're knowing where the money's coming from, and that you understand how much you're setting aside for roughly how much you're setting aside to pay all these taxes, right? Um, do I have to complete a tax return for the first month when I did not have income? Yes. Yes. It's going to be a simple one, but yes, you have to show that. Yeah. Um, right. So payroll, so income taxes, self-employment taxes, this is going to be something taken care of by your accountant. They'll talk to you about estimated taxes so that you're paying throughout the year and you're not hit with something at the end of the year. Payroll taxes is taken care of by your payroll processing company, or if you're doing it yourself, your accounting software that you're using to do that. Um, Sales tax should be tracked by you and or your POS. Most modern POSs now have very easy tax collection. They set it, they'll tell you how much to set aside, and you're gonna want to pay that with the state every month. And then most importantly, though, right, is just tracking that stuff and budgeting for that stuff. Understanding that if you're, if you're if you're selling prepared foods, you're setting aside 8% of all your sales to go towards sales tax, right? Um, and the best way, one of the easiest ways to do that is to, when you set up your bank accounts, set up a separate tax account, put that money into that account each week so that you know not to touch it, right? But yeah, it's basically just good organization of numbers of your receipts and your sales coming in. Most POS platforms will do that for you, and you just make sure all the settings are right, and then giving that information to your accountant. Okay. Do you need an attorney? Most likely, right? Um, so an attorney will. Can you move to your left? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Budgeting. Did I move? Budgeting. Last slide. Right. So budgeting for that is the sales tax part of it. And again, all these slides are going to be emailed to you guys. Okay. All right. Do you need an attorney? Most likely. Maybe is a more accurate answer, but if you are taking on any risk as a business, you're going to want to, and most businesses will take on some kind of risk. Um, you'll need an attorney to navigate all that, to help you with contracts, to help you with the lease that you're potentially going to sign, right? Understand your liability. Um, the if you are a business that has a lot of contracts with your clients, you're going to definitely need a lawyer for that. Um, And if you're going to file a trademark or get a patent, you'll definitely need a lawyer for that. One of the most common things that I see is that businesses do not have an operating agreement. That's a really important one. Um, so it's really important so basically an operating agreement. It's also called an articles of incorporation. I call it like the constitution for your business, meaning it is a legal document that a lawyer looks over, that is a signed document that tells the state, banks, tells the outside world how you operate and what happens in the event of certain scenarios. Meaning, who gets control of the bank account if you are not able to perform your role anymore? Who assumes control of the business? Should you not be able to operate anymore? How much percentage of the business does each person own if it's a partnership, right? What is everybody's roles, right? It dictates how this business operates. So it's really important to have, even if you are the only owner of your business. Um, but especially if you're in a partnership, right? And oftentimes we get friends, family, partners starting a business together, and they're both going to be owners. And you don't want to open that door because you're like, oh, the relationship's good, and it's never going to go wrong. It can go wrong in many ways you can't predict. And so having an operating agreement will just bring clarity to those situations, right? So many times we come to a situation where partners, the relationship is no longer functioning and they need to create an operating agreement while things are not good. Yeah, things are good until it's not. Um, and so these are really important. And you will need a lawyer to review this for you. There are standard formats for this that covers basics, right? So we have a very boilerplate template for a single owner operating agreement that you can start with. That's helpful. It could save you some money so that a lawyer doesn't have to spend as much time on it. But you want to know what it does for you. You want to know what it covers for you. And banks are going to want to see this if you often want to see this if you start a bank account with them or if you're going to get financing. They're going to want to see some kind of operating agreement. Okay. So that's a big one. Moving on. Tax ID number. So going back to the tax question, it's your business's social security number, right? Yes, you will need one if you are going to um, collect taxes and remit taxes to the state, right? EINs are free. So again, those scams that sort of say, "Hey, we'll set up your LLC and EIN for you at this cost." You can get your EIN very easily, and you can do it for free. Um, so yeah, TIN and the EIN are the same. Okay, should you get one? So like, yeah, do not pay for an EIN. All right. We are just or 11 my own records. Okay. Well, I'm gonna skip hiring then, if that's okay. This can be covered in the planning. I'm doing part two, so I will make sure I cover that. And we'll hopefully we'll get you to a part where you to a place where you can open your business. And again, maybe I'll cover this more in the planning side of things. This part will be part of like the marketing section. Okay. All right. So a reminder again, here's the SBDC's contact info. So again, we are supposed to only help people that are opening businesses in Maine. If you're not planning to open a business in Maine, every state has their own SBDC. Click on that link at the bottom and to find your state's SBDC. Right, here's all the contact info, and again, here's my email again at the bottom. All right, one more round of questions. What else we got before we wrap up? Thanks for your time, everybody. Thanks, Dan. Um, yeah, any other questions before we close out? So again, part of this is me selling our services. We're a free service. We want to help. We want to help you, right? We're not here to judge. We're not here to tell you to do something wrong. We're here to help you navigate the twisting, tangled road of entrepreneurship. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Debbie and Liz, I will send you those resources.